There is a quiet kind of power in walking away, one that most people fail to recognize. It does not announce itself with grand gestures or final words spoken in anger. It is not a battle won, nor a victory celebrated. Instead, it happens in silence, in the unseen moments where a decision is made deep within. The moment you stop arguing. The moment you stop trying to make someone understand. The moment you feel the weight of staying and realize that leaving is the only thing that makes sense. We've been taught that staying means we care more, that fighting relentlessly shows commitment and strength. Yet, quietly, beneath the noise of our struggle, there's an unmistakable truth. Sometimes the bravest act is simply to let go. Not because you don't care, but precisely because you do, about yourself, your emotional health, and your peace. Walking away isn't defeat. It's choosing clarity over confusion, calm over chaos. Think of the countless moments you've spent trying to convince someone else of your worth, pleading silently for validation, or hoping desperately that things might change. But each time you remained in places that drained you emotionally, you gave away a piece of your power. You placed your happiness in hands other than your own, hoping they'd handle it gently. Walking away is how you reclaim that power. It's how you quietly, yet decisively, return to yourself. It takes courage to leave what's familiar. Even when it hurts deeply, familiarity feels safe. The unknown feels intimidating, vast, and uncertain. Yet this uncertainty is exactly where growth happens, where you rediscover who you truly are beneath layers of expectation and emotional exhaustion. Choosing to walk away means stepping bravely into that space, trusting yourself enough to rebuild and renew from within. The silent strength you find when you choose to walk away doesn't seek approval or applause. It is a strength born from self-awareness, understanding clearly that your peace matters more than appearances or validation from others. People around you may never fully grasp why you left or why you chose solitude over toxic attachment. Yet their understanding isn't what grants your decision value. Your own inner peace does. Walking away offers a quiet liberation, allowing you space to breathe, to heal, and to reconnect with yourself authentically. Each step taken away from pain moves you closer toward emotional freedom. You begin to see your worth independently of others' perceptions, realizing clearly that staying where you're undervalued diminishes your sense of self. This quiet decision to let go, made without fanfare or grand declarations, is the ultimate act of self-respect. It marks the moment you choose your emotional health over fear, clarity over confusion, and yourself above all else. Walking away silently redefines strength, proving that real power lies not in endurance alone, but in knowing clearly when it's time to honor your own heart first. Recognizing when it's time to let go is perhaps the most important step toward reclaiming your emotional power. Yet, it's often the hardest to accept. Deep down, your heart already knows when something is no longer healthy or fulfilling. You feel the signs, a constant tension in your chest, the subtle anxiety every time your phone rings, the quiet sadness lingering behind your smile. These feelings are signals, your inner wisdom urging you gently to acknowledge the truth. We often ignore these quiet messages. Perhaps out of hope, or fear, or simply habit, you remain in situations that slowly drain your emotional strength. You try harder, believing that more effort or patience might fix what feels broken. But your emotional health isn't something to gamble with indefinitely. When holding on causes more pain than peace, it's a clear indication that it's time to release your grip. Sometimes the most obvious signs are also the most easily ignored. You're exhausted from trying to be heard, tired of feeling unseen, and weary of repeating the same conversations, hoping for different outcomes. Each attempt feels heavier than the last, yet you convince yourself that giving up means failure. But walking away isn't failure, it's honoring your emotional truth. It's understanding clearly that your energy deserves to flow towards something that nourishes you rather than depletes you. Recognizing when it's time to let go also requires honesty. Honesty with yourself about what's genuinely keeping you tied to this situation or relationship. Are you staying out of love or fear of loneliness? Are you clinging to memories of better days rather than facing the current reality? Answering these questions might feel uncomfortable, but they guide you toward clarity. True self-awareness isn't always gentle, yet it's precisely this honesty that empowers you. You have the right to acknowledge clearly when enough is enough. It doesn't matter if others disagree or misunderstand your choice. Your emotional well-being isn't open for debate or validation. Choosing yourself means listening closely to your feelings and trusting them, even if it means walking away from something familiar. Ultimately, knowing when it's time to let go is a quiet act of courage. It's stepping toward a place of emotional honesty, clarity, and peace, even when uncertainty awaits. Each step taken in the direction of your truth strengthens you, reminding you clearly that walking away can be your greatest act of self-care. When you finally recognize it's time to let go, you naturally begin breaking free from emotional drains that have quietly exhausted your spirit. You've likely experienced the hidden weight of giving too much of yourself to people or situations that offer little in return. It's as if your emotional reserves slowly disappear, leaving you tired, frustrated, and unsure why. Each emotional drain starts subtly. It often appears disguised as kindness, patience, or love, until one day you realize you've been pouring into a bottomless cup. Your energy, compassion, and emotional investment disappear into someone else's void, leaving you depleted. Eventually, the emptiness you feel becomes undeniable, a clear sign that boundaries have dissolved quietly over time. Your body usually notices these drains before your mind accepts them. Maybe you've felt unexplained fatigue or constant anxiety, unable to pinpoint exactly why. Your emotional health speaks through physical sensations, gently nudging you towards self-awareness. The body knows clearly when something isn't right, urging you quietly to take action. Learning to identify emotional drains is essential. Ask yourself gently, after spending time in certain relationships or environments, do you feel inspired or depleted, supported or isolated, seen or invisible? Honest answers reveal precisely where your emotional energy disappears, guiding you toward choices that restore rather than drain you. Breaking free requires courage and a commitment to yourself. Initially, setting emotional boundaries might feel uncomfortable, even foreign. You might fear disappointing someone or seeming selfish. Yet prioritizing your emotional health is never selfish. It's necessary. By placing limits around your emotional availability, you protect your peace and replenish your energy. Notice the relief you feel when you stop trying to save or change people who resist change. Letting go of responsibility for others' emotions frees your own. Emotional drains thrive on your silence and compliance, weakening your inner strength. Choosing clearly to withdraw your participation breaks that cycle, allowing your true self space to breathe again. Stepping away from draining situations isn't always easy, but it creates space for healthier connections. As you begin to reclaim your emotional energy, you'll notice a quiet resurgence of strength. This strength arises not from external validation, but from knowing clearly that your peace deserves protection, your feelings deserve respect, and your emotional resources are too valuable to waste. Understanding the hidden cost of emotional drains reveals clearly why staying can hurt more than leaving. The pain of remaining in a difficult relationship is subtle but relentless, quietly eroding your emotional well-being until even your strongest convictions weaken. Breaking free from emotional drains reveals an uncomfortable truth. Staying can hurt more than leaving. You don't always notice it at first. The exhaustion creeps in slowly, disguised as patience, disguised as love. But the more you give without receiving, the more your spirit feels depleted. At some point, you stop feeling like yourself. You hesitate before speaking, you question your emotions, you convince yourself that if you just try harder, things will get better. But deep inside, you sense something isn't right. Love, in its truest form, doesn't require self-betrayal. A relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or even professional, shouldn't cost you your peace. The pain of staying isn't always loud. It's the quiet loss of confidence, the slow erosion of your self-worth. It's the way you start making excuses for treatment that once felt unacceptable, the way you settle for less than you know you deserve, just to avoid the discomfort of change. It's waking up one day and realizing that the person looking back at you in the mirror seems distant, unfamiliar. Fear convinces you that leaving will be worse, that regret will follow, that loneliness will be unbearable. But what if the real loss isn't in leaving, but in staying where you're not valued? Each day spent in emotional discomfort chips away at your strength. Each time you ignore your own needs, you reinforce the belief that they don't matter. Walking away is painful, but staying in a place that no longer nurtures you is a slow kind of self-abandonment. When love, respect, or even simple kindness becomes conditional, staying only prolongs the inevitable. You end up fighting for something that no longer fights for you. The most difficult choice isn't between staying or leaving. It's between holding on to a version of the past or stepping into the unknown. But the unknown, as unsettling as it feels, holds the space for something new, something lighter, something real. Holding on isn't always a sign of strength. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is loosen your grip, take a deep breath, and trust that life begins again on the other side. Walking away comes with an unexpected weight, guilt. Even when you know staying would have hurt you more, a voice inside whispers that maybe you should have tried harder, waited longer, been more patient. Guilt attaches itself to the idea that leaving means abandoning, that choosing yourself somehow makes you selfish. But guilt is not proof that you made the wrong decision. It is proof that you once cared deeply. The feeling lingers in the quiet moments. You wonder if you were too harsh, if you misunderstood, if things could have been different. The mind replays conversations, searching for signs that leaving was unnecessary. But choosing yourself first is not a betrayal. It's a necessary shift in perspective, one that places your emotional well-being above the fear of disappointing others. Some guilt doesn't even belong to you. It was planted by expectations, by a culture that praises endurance at any cost. You were taught that love means sacrifice, that staying means loyalty, that suffering proves devotion. But love is not measured by how much pain you can endure. No one else is responsible for protecting your emotional health. That is your responsibility alone. For so long, you might have put others ahead of yourself, bending to meet their needs while quietly neglecting your own. Walking away forces you to confront this habit. It asks you to rewrite the belief that your worth is tied to how much you give to others. When was the last time you asked yourself what you need? When was the last time you honored your own feelings without guilt creeping in? Choosing yourself isn't about turning your back on people. It's about refusing to turn your back on yourself. There is a difference between self-prioritization and selfishness. Selfishness disregards others, but self-prioritization ensures that you are not forgotten in the process. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself isn't an indulgence. It's a necessity. The discomfort of guilt will fade. What remains is a deeper sense of self-trust. The more you choose yourself, the clearer you see that no relationship, romantic, familial, or otherwise, should require you to abandon your own emotional needs. You are not responsible for carrying the weight of others at your own expense. Overcoming guilt is the first step. But once the weight of it begins to lift, another question appears. What now? Walking away leaves an empty space, one that was once filled by a relationship, a habit, or a version of yourself that no longer exists. That space can feel unsettling, as if something is missing. But loss is not just an ending. It is also an opening, a space where personal growth can begin. At first, the silence may feel overwhelming. The absence of familiar patterns, even painful ones, creates a discomfort that's hard to ignore. It's easy to mistake this emptiness for regret, but in reality, it is possibility. It is a blank canvas, waiting for you to decide what comes next. Growth does not come from avoiding pain, but from allowing yourself to move through it with awareness. The mind often clings to what was lost, replaying moments, questioning decisions, searching for meaning in what no longer exists. But personal growth begins the moment you shift your focus from what is gone to what remains. You are still here. Your strength, your ability to love, your capacity to rebuild, all of it is intact. You did not lose yourself when you walked away. You simply created space for a new version of you to emerge. Growth after loss is not immediate. It is a slow process of relearning yourself, of seeing who you are outside of what you left behind. Some days will feel lighter, others will feel like you are standing still. But even in stillness, change is happening. Every time you choose not to return to what hurt you, every time you decide to invest in yourself instead of looking back, you are growing. Not all growth feels like progress at first. Sometimes it feels like confusion, like uncertainty, like standing at a crossroads with no clear direction. But growth isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to explore the unknown, to trust that something new is waiting for you on the other side. The space left behind by loss is not meant to be filled with distractions or rushed decisions. It is meant to be understood, explored, and eventually transformed. In that space, you do not find weakness, you find resilience. Turning loss into growth creates space for something most people avoid: solitude. After walking away, after the noise of the past fades, you are left with yourself. No distractions, no illusions. Just you. At first, solitude can feel unfamiliar, like an empty room where echoes of the past still linger. But it is in this quiet space that you begin to rediscover your true self. There was a time when you defined yourself through the eyes of others, through relationships, expectations, the roles you played to feel needed. Walking away stripped those layers, revealing something deeper: who you are without external validation. Solitude doesn't mean loneliness. It means finally meeting yourself, without interruptions or distortions. Sitting with yourself after leaving something behind is not easy. The silence forces you to listen, to your emotions, your fears, your longings. But silence is not emptiness. It is a conversation waiting to happen. When you embrace solitude, you start to hear yourself clearly again. Not the voice shaped by past attachments, but the one that belongs only to you. There is an undeniable freedom in learning that you are enough on your own, that your worth is not defined by whether someone chooses you, stays, or understands you. When you are comfortable in your own presence, relationships stop being about filling a void. They become choices, not needs. You no longer cling, you connect. You no longer seek approval, you exist fully as you are. Most people fear solitude because they believe it is absence, but true solitude is presence, the deepest form of self-awareness. It allows you to understand your emotions without external interference. It gives you the chance to ask yourself, what do I truly want? What makes me feel alive? What parts of me have been waiting to be acknowledged? Embracing solitude is not about isolation. It is about building a relationship with yourself strong enough that no external force can shake it. It's about recognizing that being alone does not mean being lost. It means being whole without needing another person to confirm it. The deeper you embrace solitude, the more you realize you were never truly alone. You were simply waiting to return to yourself. If this message resonated with you, if something in these words made you pause and reflect, you're on the right path. Walking away isn't just about leaving, it's about reclaiming yourself, your energy, your peace. Now I want to hear from you. What was the hardest part of walking away for you? If this message resonated with you, if something in these words made you pause and reflect, you're on the right path. Walking away isn't just about leaving, it's about reclaiming yourself, your energy, your peace. Now, I would love to know, what was the hardest part of walking away for you? Leave a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you're ready for more content that guides you toward emotional freedom, hit that subscribe button. There's so much more waiting for you. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.